Question 636. The longest length of time a lease will be valid for is A. 51 years for a farm property, B. 99 years for an urban property, C. 50 years for either farm or urban properties, D. Both A and B. Correct answer is D. Both A and B. Based on California law, California Civil Code Section 717 specifically limits the lease term for agricultural or horticultural land to a maximum of 51 years. California law also sets a limit on the lease term for town or city lots. While it's often stated as 99 years, the exact wording in California Civil Code Section 718 refers to leasing land for the purpose of erecting buildings thereon. Historically and practically, these leases are often structured for a maximum of 99 years. Leases for oil, mineral or gas production also cannot exceed 99 years. Question 637. When an asking price is initially based on a listing contract, it will probably A. Have a high-end market value, B. Have a low-end market value, C. Have a mid-range market value, D. Not reflect the sales of other properties in the same neighborhood. Correct answer is A. Have a high-end market value. Sellers generally want to get the highest possible price for their property. Therefore, the initial asking price, often set in consultation with the listing agent, tends to be at the higher end of what the seller believes the market will bear. Setting a slightly higher initial price allows room for negotiation with potential buyers. Buyers often expect to offer less than the asking price, and a higher starting point accommodates this expectation. An initial high asking price can also serve to test the market. It allows the seller and agent to gauge buyer interest and see if there are any offers at or near that price. If not, they can adjust the price later. While a good agent will advise on a realistic price based on market analysis, they also need to consider the seller's desires. Starting slightly high can keep the seller happy initially. While the ultimate goal is to reach a price within the fair market value range, the initial asking price as it's introduced to the market is strategically often set towards the higher end of that range. It's less common to start with a low-end price unless there's a specific strategy for generating multiple offers quickly or if the seller needs a fast sale. A mid-range price is possible but might not leave as much room for negotiation or capitalize on initial buyer enthusiasm. A price that doesn't reflect comparable sales would likely deter buyers and is generally not a sound strategy. Question 638. Land includes the following rights. A. Water rights, B. Mineral rights, C. Surface rights, D. All of the above. Correct answer is D. All of the above. Land ownership encompasses more than just the surface of the property. It includes a bundle of rights, which can be separated or held together. These rights generally include A. Water rights. The right to use water on or bordering the property, although these rights are often governed by state law and can be complex, especially here in California. B. Mineral rights. The right to explore for and extract minerals found beneath the surface of the land. These rights can be owned separately from surface rights. C. Surface rights. The right to use and develop the surface of the land, including building on it, farming it, etc. Question 639. If an appraiser increases the capitalization rate on income property, that means the appraiser is predicting A. Higher gross income, B. Higher return, C. Higher degree of risk, D. Higher net income. Correct answer is C. Higher degree of risk. Capitalization rate, cap rate, is a ratio used in real estate valuation to estimate the potential return on an investment property. It's calculated by dividing the property's net operating income, NOI, by its current market value. When an appraiser increases the cap rate, it signifies a decrease in the perceived value of the property relative to its income potential. This can be due to several factors, including greater than increased risk associated with the property, e.g., vacancy rates, potential for lower future income. Greater than increased risk associated with the property, e.g., vacancy rates, potential for lower future income. Greater than higher operating expenses anticipated for the property. Greater than lower overall market demand for similar properties. Therefore, a higher cap rate suggests a higher degree of risk associated with the property, leading to a lower predicted return on investment. Question 640. The most efficient approach for appraising a library is the A. Comparables method, B. Market data method, C. Reproduction cost method, D. Income capitalization method. Correct answer is C. Reproduction cost method. Comparables method, also known as the sales comparison approach or market data method, relies on analyzing recent sales of similar properties. Libraries are not typically sold on the open market, and finding truly comparable sales of other libraries can be challenging due to their unique nature, design, and purpose. Income capitalization method estimates value based on the income the property generates. Libraries are typically non-profit public service facilities and do not produce income in the traditional real estate sense, like rent. While they might have some revenue streams, e.g., fines, fees, these are not the primary basis for their value. Reproduction cost method estimates the cost of constructing an exact replica of the existing building at today's prices. It's including materials, labor, and overhead, and then deducts depreciation for physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, and external obsolescence. Libraries are often unique, special-purpose buildings with specific design features and construction, making direct comparison to other sales, comparables, difficult. Question 641. To be enforceable, a buyer representation agreement does not have to A. Be written, B. Include a legal description of the property, C. Be signed by the buyer, D. Include a termination date. Correct answer is B. Include a legal description of the property. A buyer representation agreement is a contract between a buyer and a real estate agent outlining the terms of their working relationship. To be enforceable, it typically needs to establish the agency relationship and the obligations of both parties. This generally requires A. Be written. In California, like many other states, agency agreements for real estate transactions must be in writing to be enforceable under the statute of frauds. This protects both the buyer and the agent by clearly outlining the terms of their agreement. C. Be signed by the buyer. The buyer, as the principal in the agency relationship, needs to sign the agreement to indicate their consent to the terms and their commitment to working with the agent. D. Include a termination date. A definite termination date is important to establish the duration of the agreement and prevent it from continuing indefinitely. However, a buyer representation agreement focuses on the buyer and their search for a property. It doesn't necessarily need to include a legal description of the property because the buyer hasn't yet identified the specific property they intend to purchase. The agreement governs the agent's representation of the buyer during their property search, regardless of the specific properties they might consider. Once a specific property is identified and an offer is made, that property will have its own legal description in the purchase agreement. Question 642. Even if a loan application is rejected due to information included in a credit report, the borrower does not have the right to the following to be A. Notified of the reason why his loan was denied, B. Informed of all information about him, including the sources, from the records of the credit reporting agency. C. Have a second chance, within 1 month, to apply for the loan. D. Informed of all creditors in the last 6 months who have received a copy of his credit report. Correct answer is C. Have a second chance, within 1 month, to apply for the loan. Even if a loan application is denied based on credit report information, the borrower has certain rights protected by the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA. They must be informed of the reason for the denial, and can access a free copy of their credit report annually to see the information used in the decision. Borrowers can also learn who viewed their credit report in the past year, but not the specific creditors who received a copy. However, the FCRA does not guarantee a second chance to apply for the loan within a specific time frame. The lender may choose to reconsider, but they are not obligated to. Question 643. Someone who can execute a valid will is said to have A. Willfulness, B. Pledging power, C. A promissory note, D. Testamentary capacity. Correct answer is D. Testamentary capacity. While a person making a will does so intentionally, willfulness, in a legal context often refers to a deliberate or intentional act, sometimes with a negative connotation. It doesn't specifically describe the legal ability to create a valid will. Pledging power is related to the ability to offer assets as security for a loan or obligation. It's not relevant to the capacity to make a will. A promissory note is a written promise to pay a specific sum of money to another party. It's a debt instrument and has nothing to do with the ability to execute a will. Testamentary capacity is the legal term that refers to a person's mental ability to understand the nature of their actions, the extent of their property, and the identity of their beneficiaries when they make a will. To execute a valid will, the testator, the person making the will, must possess testamentary capacity at the time of signing. Question 644. A buyer may rescind a purchase contract for a property for after entering into the contract. A. 1 day, B. 3 days, C. 10 days, D. There is no right to rescind a purchase contract. Correct answer is B. 3 days. The statutory right to rescind contracts runs for a 3-day period beginning from the date the contract is agreed to. Question 645. Randy has a mood disorder which can cause him to act severely irrational. During one of his manic episodes, Randy is convinced by a telemarketer to enter into a contract for a timeshare property. The contract is A. Void, B. Voidable, C. Valid, D. Modifiable by a counter-offer. Correct answer is B. Voidable. A timeshare is a shared ownership model of vacation real estate in which multiple buyers own the rights to use the same property at different times in a year. A contract entered into by a person who lacks the mental capacity to understand the nature and consequences of their actions at the time of contracting can be considered voidable. Randy's severe irrationality due to his manic episode suggests he may not have had the requisite mental capacity to understand the timeshare contract he entered into with the telemarketer. A contract is typically considered void from its inception if a party is deemed legally incompetent at the time of signing, e.g., adjudicated insane. While Randy's manic episode caused severe irrationality, it doesn't automatically equate to a legal declaration of incompetence that would make the contract void. Given Randy's state of severe irrationality due to his mood disorder during the contract signing, it's unlikely the contract would be considered valid. A key element of a valid contract is the mutual assent of parties who have the capacity to contract. A counter-offer is a response to an offer that changes the original terms. This scenario describes a situation where one party's mental capacity to enter into the initial agreement is questionable, not a negotiation process involving counter-offers. Therefore, because Randy's mental state at the time of the contract could be argued to have impaired his ability to understand the agreement, the contract is likely voidable at his option once he regains capacity. He would have the right to disaffirm, cancel, the contract.